February 7th, 2025. We're reading 15.5 in parts. Chapter 15.5, Ways of Reflecting Wisely by using Yo Ni So Mana Sikara. Part 4, page 1476 to page 1487. 15.5 H. Reflection, rousing, wholesome qualities. Or reflections that creates, that cultivates, that arouses, that awakens, that supports wholesome qualities. 15.5 H. Yo Ni So Mana Sikara. Wise reflection. Rousing wholesome qualities can be referred to as reflection mobilizing virtue. Reflection on cultivating virtue, or contemplation conducive to a wholesome and beneficial course of thinking. It is used to prevent, reduce, used to dispel tanha, craving. It is thus classified as part of preliminary spiritual practice. It promotes the growth of wholesome qualities and generates conscious, mundane, samadhi, right view. The general premise behind the form of reflection that different people may experience or cognize the same phenomenon in different ways. They may see and think in a different manner according to the structure of their minds, their accumulated habits and proclivities. This includes sankhara, the fashioners or the determinants of the mind that they've been created themselves, or their considerations in that moment. In regard to a single object, one person may look at it and think in wholesome, beneficial, and virtuous ways, while another person may look at it and think in negative, harmful, or unwholesome ways. Similarly, for some reasons mentioned above, a single person may experience the same objects at different points in time, creates different ideas and opinions about it. At one moment he likes it, and the next he does not. This form of reflection plays an important role in generating wholesome thoughts and actions during the time of reflection and in helping to rectify long-standing negative habits and inclinations, but at the same time creating new alternative wholesome habits. On the contrary, if one lacks the skillful means of reflection, one's thoughts and action will be influenced by the power of accumulated habits alone, which will in turn be continually reinforced by these thoughts and actions. One simple example of this is which is found in the Tipitaka, the reflection on death, Marana Sati. If one applies unwise or unskillful attention, yo ni so manasikara, unwholesome states will arise. The example is one thinks of death, one feels depressed and sad, discouraged or frightened. Or when one thinks of death as an enemy, one feels delight. If one applies wise reflection, on the other hand, wholesome states will arise. One will feel vigilant and inspired. One will strive to perform one's duties, act as beneficials, and practice the Dharma, and one will gain insight in the true nature of conditioned phenomenon. As outlined in the scriptures, a skillful reflection on death includes the factor of mindfulness, sati, or to be circumspect, to bear in mind those things that need to be engaged with, a sense of urgency, samveja, motivation, and knowledge in line with the truth. Many skillful methods are recommended in regard to reflection on death. There are many passages in the Tipitaka in which Gautama Buddha describes how in the same incident or situation one may think will lead to laziness, while another way will lead to effort. Here is one example. Bhikkhus, there are 8 occasions of indulgence. Kusita vatu. What 8? Here a bhikkhu has a job to do. He thinks, I've got this job to do, but it will make me tired. First I have to rest. So he lies down and does not marshal energy to complete the uncompleted, to accomplish the unaccomplished, to realize the unrealized. Or he has done some work and thinks, I've done this work. Now I am tired. I'll have to rest. So he lies down. Or he has to go on a journey and thinks, I have to go on this journey. It will make me tired. First, I'll have to rest. So he lies down. Or he has been on a journey and thinks, I finished the journey. Now I am tired. I have to rest. So he lies down. Or he goes on alms round in a village or in a town and does not get his fill of food, whether coarse or fine, and he thinks, gone for alms in a village or a town and have not got my fill of food, whether coarse or fine. My body is tired, and I am not fit for work. I'll have a rest. So he lies down. Or he goes on alms round in a village or a town and gets his fill of food, either coarse or fine, and he thinks, I've gone for alms in the village or a town. I've got my fill of food, either coarse or fine. My body is heavy, like a load of soaked beans, not fit for work. I'll have a rest. So he lies down. Or he has developed some slight sickness, and he thinks, I've developed some slight sickness. There's a good reason to lie down. I better have a rest. So he lies down. Or he is recuperating, having not long recovered from illness, and he thinks, I am recuperating. Having not long recovered from an illness, my body is weak, not fit for work. I'll have a rest. So he lies down. By reflecting in another manner, however, each of those identical situations lead to the application of effort, vidya. The 8 occasions for commencing and making of effort, arapavatu, are as follows. Monks, bhikkhus, there are 8 occasions for rousing effort, vidya. What are the 8s? Here, a bhikkhu, a monk, has a job to do. He thinks, I have a job to do. But in doing it, it won't find it easy to pay attention to the teaching of the Buddhas. So I will stir up sufficient energy to complete the uncompleted, to accomplish the unaccomplished, to realize the unrealized. So he has finished some work and thinks, well, I did the job. But while doing it, it wasn't able to pay ample attention to the teaching of the Buddhas. So I'll stir up sufficient energy. Or he has to go on a journey and thinks, I have to go on to this journey. But in doing so, I won't find it easy to pay attention to the teaching of the Buddhas. So I will stir up sufficient energy. Or he has been on a journey and thinks, I finished the journey, but while still doing so, I wasn't able to pay ample attention to the teaching of the Buddhas. So I will stir up sufficient energy. Or he goes on alms rounds in a village or a town and does not get fill of food, whether coarse or fine, and thinks, I've gone for the alms in the village or the town and have not got my fill of food, whether coarse or fine. My body is light and fit for work, so I will stir up sufficient energy. Or he goes on alms round in the village or a town and gets his fill of food, either coarse or fine, and thinks, I've gone for alms in the village or the town and have not got my fill of food, either coarse or fine. My body is light and fit for work, so I'll stir up some sufficient energy. Or he has developed some slight sickness, and he thinks, I've developed some slight sickness. It is quite possible that this illness will get worse, so I will stir up sufficient energy. Or he is recuperating. Having not long recovered from an illness and thinks I am recuperating. Having not long recovered from illness, it is quite possible that the illness will return, so I will stir up some sufficient energy. In the case that negative thoughts, the Tipitaka suggests methods for addressing them. Most of these methods entail the use of reflection, creating wholesome qualities. Take the example in the Vitaka's Antana Sutra. Gautama Buddha, describes 5 general principles or stages for dealing with unwholesome thoughts. If evil, unwholesome thoughts accompanied by greed, hatred, or delusion arise, one can rectify them in the following ways. 1. To think about or pay attention to manasikara, something else or something wholesome and virtuous. For instance, one thinks about something generating a feeling of metta, loving kindness, instead of something that rouses anger. If by doing this, the negative thoughts still prevail, the second, to consider the harm of such negative thoughts, on how they are unskillful and destructive, and lead to dukkha, suffering, if they continue. Third, to conduct one's life by paying attention to negative thoughts, similar to how a person who does not want to see something closes his eyes and looks at something else, if they still do not cease. And fourth, to reflect on the conditioned nature, sankhara santana, of such thoughts, to hold these thoughts in awareness of objects of study for increased knowledge. Rather than consider them as personal problems, one investigates the nature of these thoughts and searches for the root causes, if they still do not disappear. Fifth, to clamp down on one's teeth and press the tongue to the roof of one's mouth, making a firm determination to restrain and eliminate these negative thoughts. In some passages in the Tipitaka, methods are described for addressing specific kinds of unwholesome thoughts. The example here is the Buddha Gautama suggests his following methods for eliminating malice and resentment. One should develop metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, equanimity in regard to a person who is the object of one's resentment. One should simply disregard that person, or should consider that person in light of the principles of karma, causality, causes and conditions, cause and effect. That the person is the owner of his karma, sakomi, heir to his karma, yoni, born of his karma, pantu, related to his karma, pati sarano, abides and supported by his own karma. Whatever karma he should do, for good or for evil, that he will fall heir. That's very important. Venerable Sariputra suggested 5 methods for eliminating malice and aversion, which are based on understanding of differences between people. First, some people, although their physical actions are not impeccable, their speech is well-mannered and disciplined. Second, some people, although their speech is bad-mannered, their physical actions are impeccable. Third, some people, although neither their speech nor their physical actions are well-mannered, their mind is still occasionally wholesome and pure. Fourth, some people have bad-mannered speech and physical actions, and their minds have no opportunity to be virtuous and pure, even temporarily. Fifth, some people have impeccable speech and physical actions, and their minds are constantly virtuous and pure. In regard to those people whose physical actions are faulty, but whose speech is well-mannered, one should dispel one's aversions by focusing on their wholesome speech, disregarding their unwholesome physical deeds. This is similar to a bhikkhu, a monk, who keeps the Dutankata rule of wearing only rag robes. When he finds discarded rag on the road, he steps on it with his left foot, spreads it out with his right foot, tears it only to the parts which are good and useful. In regard to those people whose speech is faulty, but whose physical actions are well-mannered, one should focus on their wholesome deeds and disregard their unskillful speech. This is similar to the lotus pond, completely covered by algae. When the traveler arrives, hot, tired, and thirsty, he goes down to the pond, sweeps the algae along with his hands, cups his hands together to scoop up the water, drinks, and goes on his way. In regard to those whose verbal and physical actions are faulty, but who know occasional moments of goodness and purity, one should disregard their tainted verbal physical actions. Instead, one should focus their fact and their minds on occasionally open to goodness. This is similar to a small amount of water containing a cow hoof print. A traveler, hot and tired, thirsty, sees the water and thinks, there is only a little water in this hoof print. If I scoop it up with my hands or with a bowl, the water will become cloudy, so it will become unpotable. Why don't I kneel down, support myself with my arms, and drink like a cow? In this way, he drinks the water and goes on his way. In regard to those people whose verbal, physical actions are faulty, furthermore, whose minds are not virtuous and pure even temporarily, one should establish oneself in kindness and compassion, thinking of the ways to assist them by considering, indeed, let this person abandon such unwholesome actions by body, abandon such unwholesome actions by speech, abandon such unwholesome actions by mind, and cultivate wholesome actions. May this person not die and be reborn to the state of perdition, misery, ruin, and in the hellish realm. This is like a sick person, afflicted with gravely ill, who is on the long journey, both to the next village ahead and to the preceding village behind or far away. He is unable to obtain suitable food, medicine, and nursing care, or to find someone to lead him to a village. Another traveler sees him and responds with kindness and eagerness to help him, thinking, may this person obtain suitable food, medicine, and care, or find someone to lead him to a village. May this person not end in ruin and destruction here. In regard to the person whose speech and physical actions are impeccable, whose minds are continually virtuous and pure, one should focus on the contrast, verbal, physical, and mental purity. Such persons are considered worthy of respect, dakinaya bukala, worthy of respect, dakinaya bukala, in all facets of their lives. Moreover, they engender joyous and pure mind in those who think of them. This is similar to a beautiful lotus pond with clear and cool water, with tranquil borders covered with various plants. When a traveler arrives, parched, tired, and thirsty, he goes down to the pond and drinks the water, and then either sits or lies down to the shade of the brooding trees. In the Visuddha Magga, compiled by Venerable Buddha Gosa, describes many methods of contemplation for dispelling angry, resentful thoughts. These can be summarized in a series of stages and should be applied as suitable to a person's individual disposition. This subject is discussed in the context of developing meditation on the divine abode of metta, loving kindness. In a similar way, numerous methods of contemplating exist in the reference for meditation techniques, like meditation on foulness and the meditation on the four elements. First, here is one of the examples. To recollect or remember the Buddha's teaching on overcoming anger and practicing loving kindness, to remind oneself that getting caught up in anger is to fail to follow the teachings of one's teacher, Gautama Buddha. There are numerous teachings by the Buddha Gautama on anger. He told the bhikkhus, the monks, that even if one were to be captured by bandits and cut in half with a saw, if one were to harbor malice and hatred towards them, one cannot be said to be following the Buddha's teaching. Moreover, an angry person creates self-inflicted harm, consistent with wishes of his enemies. His appearance is wretched. His facial features are cheerful. He sleeps miserably. Listen to that. His appearance is wretched. His facial features are cheerless. He sleeps miserably. Furthermore, if someone else is angry, one responds with anger. One is worse than that person. Someone who does not respond to anger with anger is called one who has won an extremely difficult battle. He helps both parties, both himself and the other person involved. If by considering this way one's anger is not dispelled, to think about the other person's good quality is to reflect only on the person's good attributes. If one does not discern any good qualities in that person, one should establish one's mind in compassion by considering how he would invariably encounter harmful effects from his evil actions. If by considering this way one's anger is not dispelled yet, the third is to inform oneself that getting caught up in anger only creates trouble and misery for oneself. The person with whom one is angry is unaware of one's misery and remains unaffected. An angry person thus ends up hurting himself, destroys his own good qualities, acting as basis for virtuous conduct, and performs the actions of an ignoble person, nan arya pukala. If an angry person thinks of harming someone else, regardless of whether he accomplishes his deed or not, he invariably hurts himself first and experiences dukkha, suffering. If by contemplating in this way, one's anger is still not appeased, the fourth is to reflect in line of the law of karma, the law of cause and effect, that every person is the owner of their own actions. All people, including oneself, must reap the fruits of their individual actions. If we are caught up in anger, this itself is a negative karma, and we will experience all ill effects of this unskillful action. Likewise, if others behave badly, they will receive the effects of these actions. If by thinking in this way, one's anger is still not dispelled. Fifth is to consider the Buddha Gautama's goodness, his cultivation of perfection, his paramis, to recollect an ideal for the Buddha's acts of self-sacrifice ever since he was a bodhisattva. There are many Jataka stories, for instance, describing how he sacrificed his life for others, even the lives of his enemies. When they acted spitefully towards him, he did not seek revenge, but rather was able to win them over through goodness. One can similarly reflect on other examples of cultivation by specific individuals of perfections of renunciation and patience. In order to strengthen one's resolve and establish oneself in virtuous conduct, if by contemplating in this way one's anger is still not appeased. 6. To consider the enormous length of time of the round of rebirth, in reference to which is taught that it's difficult to find anyone who has not previously been one's mother, father, brother, sister, son, daughter, relative, or companion. Those who have offered support and assistance in the past, one should reflect on how the person with whom one is angry has most likely been one's parent or child in the past. This incident rousing anger is simply a minor event, a single episode in one's long shared history. One should refrain from fostering hatred and harboring thoughts of ill will toward each other, if by contemplating in this way one's anger still remains. Seventh, to reflect on the blessing of metta, love and kindness, to consider the benefits of kindness. For example, one goes to sleep with joy, one wakes up with joy, one does not have nightmares, one is cherished by others. One should act kindly in order to reap these benefits. If by considering this way, one's anger does not disappear. Eighth, to distinguish and analyze various elements. In order to discern that in the context of getting worked up and angry, one is in fact dealing with conventional phenomenon. That is, one simply assumes that this or that person exists as a separate entity. In truth, there is only the convenience of 32 parts. The hair of the head, the hair of the body, the nails, the teeth, the skin, etc., of various elements, of the 5 groups of the skandhas, the aggregates, and the 12 sense spheres. Wherever one's anger is directed, it has no purchase, no true foundation on which to rest. If by considering this way, one's still not free from anger. The ninth is to make a physical gesture of offering gifts, to find something to give in order to show one's goodwill and to exchange gift with one person. Giving helps to soften people's heart. It brings people together, enabling them to speak with one another with kindly words. It is thus an extremely effective instrument for quelling malice. These are simple examples of methods of contemplation, classified under the headings of reflection, rousing, wholesome qualities. Some of these methods can be used in everyday circumstances, while others are used in reflection of specific virtues. The important point here is that by understanding the general principles and the methods of these forms of reflection as well, a person clever and skillful means will be able to devise additional detailed and effective methods of the kind of reflection which are suitable for cultivating specific virtues. Consistent with relevant to the ways of thinking of people in the specific time period, one can say that this rousing of wholesome qualities is the most conductive kind of reflection for developing and discovering supplementary methods of practice, as befitting different kinds of personal dispositions and corresponding to the changing external conditions of time and place. Here it is important to re-emphasize the role of mindfulness, which consistently keeps one's thinking within the domains of yo-niso manasikara, wise reflection. Sati, mindfulness, prevents one's thinking from erring into unwise reflection and helps pull attention back, re-establishing yo-niso manasikara in line with the teachings. A person who sustains wise reflection thus applies mindfulness continually. It is possible to divide all kinds of wise reflection into 2 categories: wise reflection used for understanding the truth, and wise reflection for cultivating wholesome qualities. So 2 categories. Yo-niso manasikara, by understanding the truth and maintaining mindfulness. The second is yo-niso manasikara, that creates wholesome qualities. The point of divergence between these 2 exists at the moment of establishing one's thoughts, and mindfulness can play an important role in deciding between 2 kinds of wise reflection. In a similar way, it chooses wise reflection, unwise reflection. For example, when one cognizes a sense object and mindfulness focuses attentions in order to understand the true nature, this corresponds with wise reflection for understanding the truth. If mindfulness focuses on a specific virtue, or however to recollect wholesome images in the mind, this corresponds with wise reflection for cultivating wholesome qualities. Yo-niso manasikara, wise reflection for understanding the truth, depends on truth, which exists according to its own. Thus is the reflection certain unified. Yo-niso manasikara, wise reflection for cultivation of wholesome qualities, however, is a matter connected to mental conceptions within a sphere of sankhara, volitional formation, your intention that you create, and is thus capable of being diversified with many shapes. This is the end of 15.5 H at the top of page 1487, Buddha Dhamma.